I'm paraphrasing now when I say this, right? I once heard you say this country was built on a two-tier system, white supremacy and slavery. We spoke about it earlier. For what I understand, you believe the rise of white supremacist groups and acts of violence will reach its climax in America around 2042, right? First question I have is, I need you to clarify something. I see conflicting reports that say white supremacist groups are on the rise and extremely dangerous, while other reports are saying white supremacist groups are declining and pose no threat. Based on your research and experience, what is the truth?
Truth is, racism has always been here. Racism itself is not so much on the rise as people make it out to be. It's rising, but it's not rising by leaps and bounds. It's always been here. People are thinking, why are they acting like this? No, they've always been here. You know, you're seeing more of it. People have cell phone cameras. People, blah, blah, blah. So what we're seeing more on the rise of are people who were already here but not coming out. Now we're seeing them come out and expose themselves. All right, we're seeing a lot more of that. They're taking off the mask, so now you know who they are. All right, that started. The taking off of the mask started during the Trump administration. All right, so we're seeing a lot more of that. But let me tell you what we're seeing in this country. You mentioned 2042. All right, I learned about that in 1982. 2 years after I graduated college. I was 24 years old. I learned about it from the head of the American Nazi Party. I first met him when I was in high school, and then I encountered him 8 years later, and I questioned him about things, and he told me about 2042.
Real quick, how did you meet him? How did you meet him in high school?
Okay, in 1974, we had a class in my high school called POTC, which stood for Problems of the 20th Century. It was a senior class for 12th graders, but I was taking it as a 10th grader. And our teacher, fantastic teacher, he would bring in different people to our class.
Sounds like a great class.
It was a fantastic class. I wish they'd bring it back, So one day, he invites the head of the American Nazi Party. You could never do that today. We're talking about the 1970s, right? So I wish they would do it today. I wish they would. But they won't. Anyway, let me just give you a little bit of history about the American Nazi Party. It was created and founded by a fellow named George Lincoln Rockwell. George Lincoln Rockwell was a major supporter and proponent of the ideology of Adolf Hitler. He hated Martin Luther King. And every time King would have a march, George Lincoln Rockwell and his Gestapo would come and confront King. You can see pictures of it, and Google it or whatever. Anyway, big time anti-Semite and a racist. He was also I think a Marine or Air Force, whatever, former veteran, George Lincoln Rockwell. Well, anyway, he got into an argument with one of his members, a guy named John Palter, who shot and killed Lincoln Rockwell. So George Lincoln Rockwell's right-hand guy was a guy named Matt Cole, Koehl. Well, Matt Cole is the one who took over after Rockwell was murdered. Matt Cole is the one who came to my high school with his right-hand guy, a guy named Martin Kerr. And they're standing up there in my classroom. I'm 15 years old, espousing the views of white supremacy. Now, Cole was probably in his 40s then, because I was 15. And he pointed at me and pointed at my friend Herb, another black guy in the class, and said, "We're going to ship you back to Africa." And then he went like this, "And all you Jews out there, you're going back to Israel."
So, hold on. What did the teacher say?
Nothing. It's free speech. You let this guy come and talk to your class.
That's wild.
But I'm glad. Okay, because that helped put me on that trajectory. You know what I mean? So I'm just sitting there like, looking at this guy. I'm not saying anything to him. I can't believe what I'm hearing. I never heard an adult at that point talk like that. I'm just like, And so one of my classmates said, "They live here. You know, this is their home. What if they don't want to go? And Matt Cole said, oh, they have no choice. If they do not leave voluntarily, they will be exterminated in the upcoming race war. That was the first time I ever heard the word or term race war. I'm thinking, what is this man talking about? Yeah, you know. And so later on that day, I'm standing beside my locker in the hallway. I'm the only one there. And Matt Cole and Martin Kerr are leaving. You know, they've been there all day because they have different POTC classes. So they have to walk down the hallway past me. I'm the only one in the hallway. They come and they see me and they stopped, you know, about even closer than you and I are. And they didn't say anything to me. They just kind of like sneered at me, you know, and then they started laughing. And they went on down the hall, I guess out the front door because they were gone. And that put me on a trajectory to buy everything I could, every book I could find on black supremacy, white supremacy, the KKK, the Nazis, you name it. I want to learn about that ideology, and especially about this race war. Race war, white supremacists, they call it RAHOWA, 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 which are the first two, it's an acronym, the first two letters of these three words, racial holy war, RAHOWA. All right, look up RAHOWA and you'll see race war. They also call it the Boogaloo. Now, back in the 1960s, the Boogaloo was a dance. It's not a dance anymore. It's the race war, another term for it. So anyway, music became, 2 years later, I'm a senior. I graduate. I go to Howard University. Music becomes my profession, but studying race relations became my obsession. And there were no classes. There was not, you know, race 101. They don't even have that in college today, right? I had to self-educate. That's why I have all these books, all right? So I began going to a lot of anti-racist groups. I would go to their meetings. I would just sit there in the back and listen and learn different things. And let me tell you something. Some of these anti-racist groups are as violent, if not more violent, than the KKK.
So, like, how do they decide to execute their violence? Like, what's the...
They come and confront a Klan march. They bring bricks and chains and baseball bats, and they try to break through police lines and attack these people. I've been there. I've seen it, all right? In fact, I might tell you something off camera later if you remind me. But anyway, they got a little too crazy, and I stopped going to their meetings, okay? And I'll tell you why off camera. But anyway...
Are they organized or are they like
Yeah.
splintered?
No, it's not like
groups?
Antifa today where there's a lot of disorganization, just random crazy acts
Oh,
of
you said
violence.
they're like really organized.
Yeah.
And are they really preparing for a race war? Or this is this.
Oh, you mean the Klan? You mean the
no,
white supremacists?
The white supremacists.
Yes.
Because I saw clips
Some
of
of them are
training.
more organized than others. Okay, but yes, they are expecting and they are prepping. That's what they call it, prepping. You said preparing, same thing, for a race war. Yeah, yeah. Okay, because here's what's happening. Back to Matt Cole for a second, then we'll get it leads to where you're going. I found out through different sources. I became obsessed with this. I found out through different sources that the American Nazi Party was going to have an unpublicized, silent demonstration across the street from the White House one day. All right, there's a park right across the street from the White House called Lafayette Park. That's where you go if you want to protest. There are people there 24/7 every day of the year, every day. Okay? Whether it's nuclear weapons, the environment, abortion, you name it, somebody is there. So I understood that they were going to appear there. Nobody knows about it, except the people that they tell. Not even the police don't even know about it, right? So I found out about it. Now, back then, you could drive up and down in front of the White House. You cannot do that today. Okay, only police cars. You can walk up and down, but you can't drive your vehicle, because people have tried to run their vehicle through the gates of the White House. All right, so they just block that off. So I go down there early. I park, catty corner to the White House, and I only live 35 minutes from the White House. So I wait. Here comes this van. 13, 15 of these American Nazis get out. There's Matt Cole and Martin Kerr, the same two guys who came to my school 8 years ago, right? And Matt Cole is getting everybody lined up on the sidewalk. There's nothing that indicates they're Nazis. No Gestapo uniforms, no swastikas, SS insignia, nothing. Just dark black suits. And they're standing like this, facing the White House, right? Now, the White House knows who they are, Nobody else knows who they are, I guess. So it's lunchtime. People are walking. It's D.C. crowded. People are walking back and forth. You see them, but you don't know who they are. I know who they are. And then down here is some guy sitting in a little tent. He's protesting whatever he's protesting. Anyway, not related to the Nazis. So I wait for Matt Cole to get all situated, and then he's in the line like this. I got out of my car, I walked over, and I said, Matt Cole. See, I felt the need to confront him. Because at age 15, I did not confront him. Now I need to confront him. So I said, Matt Cole. He jumped in the line like, who is this black person who knows my name? He goes, do I know you? And I said, well, you spoke at my high school. And he said, what high school is that? I said, Wooten High School. He goes, oh, yes, I remember you. What can I do for you? He goes, that was a long time ago. I said, yes, 8 years ago. He goes, yes, I remember. What can I do for you? I said, well, do you remember what you told me? He goes, I recall. And I said, well, I'm still here. And he says, well, I can see that. How can I help you? I said, well, you can tell me just who the hell gives you the authority to make permanent travel arrangements for me. He looked at me, he goes, well, what's your name? I said, Darrell Davis. He put his hand out, he shook my hand. And then he did something that I've used before on other people, and it's pretty effective. He held my hand tight with this hand and kept shaking it, and then he shook his finger from his other hand in my face. And he said, Mr. Davis, you have to understand one thing. It is in the interest of your race, the black race, to be a strong race. And you cannot be a strong race unless you are a pure race. And you cannot be a pure race if you are miscegenating with other races. It is in the interest of my race, the Aryan race, which is what he calls the white race, to also be a strong race. And we are becoming a mongrel race by miscegenating with mud races such as yours. So anybody who's non-Aryan is a mud race. All right?
That's the thing I don't understand to this Aryan, not to deter you from your argument, but what do they mean by Aryan? Like, what is the Aryan race? Because they're not all from the same ethnic background. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
So what do they mean by Aryan race?
Pure white.
Pure white.
Pure white. God's chosen people.
All right.
That's their reality, right? All right. Okay. So anyway, we're talking, and he told me the races could not coexist in this country until they learn they cannot blend. So until that point, they cannot coexist. So, I wasn't there to beat him up. I was there to learn from him, to learn where does this craziness come from. And then he began telling me about 2042. Now, he told me a lot of lies, but what he told me about 2042, he was right. Because I've been following it ever since 1982, all right? When this country, as I said before, has been built on a two-tier society, white supremacy at the top and slavery at the bottom, right? And as we progress through the years, we may have progressed like this, but never like this, all right? When I'll be 66 week after next.
Yeah.
And when I was a child, the black population in this country was 12%. Native Americans, 1%. Hispanic, Latino Americans, almost 2%. Asian Pacifica Americans, almost 3%. Whites were like 86, 87%. All right? The census is taken, and you can fact check it, go to uscensus.gov. It's taken every 10 years, every decade. Yeah. All right? Today, black people remain around 12%. We're 12.9, so they say 13. So we have not grown. Native Americans remain at 1%. Asian Americans have grown almost double. They're almost at 6%. Latino Hispanics have more than quadrupled, 17 point something percent. So if you take just black people, 12%, and Latino Americans, 17, that right there is 29% non-white. That's almost a third, right? Today, white people only make up almost 60% of the population. This is happening, all right? It is predicted in the year 2042, for the first time in our history, this country will be 50-50. Globally, whites are a minority. In this country, they're a majority, all right? You know the term white flight. Doesn't exist. Because, the color of our landscape has changed so much. Anywhere they go, there's already somebody there that doesn't look like them, right? So they're freaking out about that. And there's a large percentage of white people in this country that don't care about that demographic shift. They shouldn't care, and they don't care. They say, hey, that's evolution. I don't have a problem with that. No big deal. But there's a slice of our population that does care, and those are the ones that I deal with. And they're the ones that tell me they don't want their grandkids to be brown, all right? And they repeat exactly what Matt Cole told me back in 1982, the browning of America and all that kind of crazy stuff.
Will they inflict violence on a white person who's in an interracial
Yes,
relationship?
they will hate that white person more than the black person.
But will they inflict violence? Will they?
Yeah,
they will.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you know what I noticed, because we're on the East Coast, we're kind of blocked off from a lot of the physical actions of racism. We may experience denial of a job or a slur, but when you're in these areas, you don't actually see that physical display of racism like you would in other areas.
I don't know so much about that.
Disagree?
Yeah, it can happen anywhere. Look at Charlottesville. That's the East Coast. Look at Mobile, Alabama, where they hung Michael McDonald.
Should I say metropolitan cities then?
Yeah, maybe metropolitan cities. Okay.
Not East Coast.
But yeah, but you know what? You saw an act of racial violence in a in the most powerful metropolitan city in the world, Washington D.C., January 6, 2020, the insurrection. That was a lot of racial violence. You saw somebody walking through the Capitol Rotunda carrying the Confederate battle flag. You saw somebody else in the Capitol Rotunda wearing a Camp Auschwitz t-shirt. You don't have to ask them what they want. That's what they want to go back to. That's the Make America Great Again. Okay? So there was a lot of violence that day. How many people did you see on January 6th breaking through windows and kicking down doors and beating up police officers that looked like me or you? D.C. is 2/3 black. How come there weren't more black people there? Yeah, so anyway, these people are fearing. They know 2042 is going to be a demographic change. And between 2045 and 2050, it's going to flip. And for the first time, whites have become the minority in this country. And that's what this group of people is afraid of. They're afraid if that were to happen, that these people are going to seek revenge on them for all the centuries of injustice. And so they're preparing for the race war.